What does it mean to be hidden from view? Today I want to speak about what we hide from view. What we do with that stuff that we hide from view. We hide it from the outside world. We hide it from ourselves even. Sometimes we hide it so well that we don't ever think about it again. Not consciously anyway, but it still informs who we are and where we've come from. So I thought I'd start with a little bit of a story. It says this is a reflection rather than a sermon. Over the years, like most parents, I needed to get my children to clean their rooms regularly. This one time I remember years ago when the Saturday morning cartoons were like the pinnacle of television watching each week for the kids, particularly on the weeks where Rick got up early and let them literally binge for hours before I got out of bed. But on the other weekends, alternate weekends, I got up early and I didn't like cartoons. And I didn't like that they sat there with their eyes glued to cartoons. So I would be more noticed. I would have music videos on, and because music's energising, and I'd go to get them moving and doing what I wanted them to do. So they didn't like me looking after them on Saturday mornings. They liked cartoons. Anyway, this one Saturday morning, I asked my then eldest daughter, she was about 8 or 9, to clean her room. I'd been asking her all week from the previous Saturday. Clean your room, it's a pigsty, clean your room, make your bed, put your washing out, all those things that we tell our children. And anyone who knows Jamie, she's pushing 40 now, she's much tidier than she used to be, but she's not inherently tidy. Anyway, this one Saturday morning, I wanted her to clean her room, and I resorted to bribery. And I said to her, if you clean your room in the next 30 minutes, I will turn the telly on and I'll let you watch cartoons till they're finished. That's like lunchtime. Right, she says. Off she goes in her room to clean her room. 10 minutes later, she comes out. I'm done. Can I watch TV now? I was suspicious and sceptical. So I said, okay, show me your room. I haven't vacuumed, she says. I said, okay. So we toddle off down to her room, and sure enough, there's nothing on the floor. I was like, okay. Must be under the bed. Pull the doona up. No, not under the bed either. Oh, she must be learning. And the bed was even kind of made. You know how kids make the bed, pull the doona up and flatten it? Yeah, it was made. Anyway. So from the outside, it looked pretty good. It needed vacuuming, but from the outside, it looked pretty good. But then I went to the wardrobe. And I thought, can't possibly. She could not have cleaned this room in 10 minutes. Opened the wardrobe, and I was buried in an avalanche of stuff. Like, buried. And she stood there and she had the good grace to look contrite. I'm not watching TV, am I, Mum? I didn't say anything. I just pointed to her room. And she walked in her room, sat on the bed and I went out to the kitchen and got a kitchen chair and my book. And I took the chair into her room and kind of kicked the stuff out of the way, put the chair down, sat down, and started reading my book. I did not say a single word to her, not a word. And she just started cleaning it. And she started humming, and she was putting stuff away, and books went on the shelf, and toys went in the toy box, and dirty washing went in the dirty washing, and clean washing, some of it went in the dirty washing. But she just did it. In 30 minutes, it was done properly. And she came over to me and gave me a hug, kissed me on the cheek and says, "You're the best. Can I watch TV now?" "Sure," I says. Off she went. Watch TV. I didn't do anything. I didn't say anything. I just sat there with her while she cleaned the room. It's a sweet story. I remember it because I was shocked when she hugged me and said, "Thanks, Mum, you're the best." I was like, okay. And it was so much better for me than blowing a gasket. Going, clean your room, clean your room, clean your room every 30 seconds. My daughter learned a good lesson, and I have a nice story to share with you. Most forays into cleaning bedrooms for our children never ended so well. This one did, but most of them didn't. But I wanted to use this story to point to our Lenten task of repentance, which is turning around or turning back to God. That the whole premise of Lent, of repentance, is that physical movement, that turning back, turning around, noticing something that's right in front of your face, but different. So, I've lost where I am now. Over the course of our lives, we accumulate a lot of stuff. Material stuff, there's tons of that, but we also accumulate emotional baggage and even spiritual stuff. Stuff we've learned, stuff we've had to unlearn, stuff we've had to relearn, stuff we thought was true and we were devastated to find out that it wasn't. Stuff we knew was true but couldn't prove. Our life, though, is created from balance. You know, we have these wins and losses and resentments and joys and disappointments and grief. There's always kind of the balance between the yin and the yang, the have and the have not, the stuff and the emptiness, if you like. But instead of dealing with a lot of our stuff, we sort of surreptitiously chuck it in the cupboard. Sometimes we chuck our stuff in the cupboard so much that we have to kind of creak the door open, throw it in and shut it quick so that the rest of the stuff we know is in there doesn't fall out. Instead of dealing with our things, our physical and emotional and spiritual needs, and tidying our rooms properly, we kind of shove it all to one side and we present this beautiful, nice, clean exterior. In terms of our personhood, we often put on a mask. We put on that perfect person that people expect us to be. The one that never gets cranky, the one that always looks beautiful and made up. Why do you think the makeup industry does so well? Because it's part of the mask. Fashion, shoes, everything. Nail polish. We want to present that put together, well done exterior. We don't want other people to know about the cupboard full of stuff in the background. But sometimes we need to clean the cupboard out. Sometimes we just need to bite the bullet, get in there and have a look at what's in there instead of checking out and just watching telly for hours on end. Our Lenten task is to clean out our cupboards before we clean up the room. Oh, there's birds coming in. We've got birds visiting us. Isn't that lovely? Our Lenten task, or our Lenten calling, or our Lenten discipline, if you like, that turning, that repentance, that turning back to God, means that instead of standing here looking perfect, with a perfect space around us and a perfectly good-looking cupboard, we're supposed to turn around and open the doors and let all the rubbish fall out. But the true point is, God is with us. Now, God might just be sitting in the corner reading a book, although I doubt it. I'm sure God's got other things to do than read a book. But the truth is that whether we know it or not, whether we feel it or not, whether we acknowledge it or not, God's in the room with us. I was in the house. I was in Qd, like literally 10 steps of my daughter, but she couldn't clean her room. All I had to do was be in the room with her. So she knew she wasn't alone. She knew I wasn't going to help. And yet she just managed it. So you guys, I've completely lost where I am. You guys are called to do the same thing. To have a look, maybe today you can just peep into your cupboard and shut the door again. Maybe you can start slowly. Maybe you can open the door a little bit and just drag the first thing out you see and deal with that, little by little. But the point is, God's with you in the room. And if it gets too hard, or it gets too emotional, or it gets too tragic, or even if it's joyful, God's there. Have you ever put something away and forgotten about it, or lost it? I lose things all the time. Find it years later, and you think, oh, I wonder why I kept this. Why did I put it in somewhere safe? I am never going to use it again. When you do that with your cupboard full of emotional baggage and spiritual baggage, a lot of those things will be, I don't even know why I kept that. Why did I shove that in there? That's not even worth keeping. But other stuff you'll have to deal with. You'll have to figure it out. So I did have a question. But I can't think of it. Right here. My takeaway task. Look at your cupboards. Do something with your cupboards this Lent, okay? Not just today, the whole of Lent, 6 weeks. That gives you 40 opportunities to peep in the cupboard and pull something out. Hopefully, you've only got 40 things in there. Maybe you could assign a word to each of your things. So you might drag something out, and by the time you think about it, and sort of go, oh, so let me give you a for instance. What about if I dragged out mum? I'll drag out my mum, right? My mum had a really bad habit of ignoring me. And I was always trying to do stuff in front of her so that she would see me, so that she would notice that I was there. And later on in life, a long time later on, after I dealt with a lot of stuff, she had told me a story when I was 10 years old about her dad used to lock her in the room and leave her there for up to 15 hours at a time because she wasn't a boy. So he used to lock her up because she wasn't a boy. So she learned a way of coping, being locked up in a room. And the way of coping was she didn't see the trouble in front of her. So whenever I was in trouble with something, not being naughty but in trouble because I needed her, she would refuse to see me. She wouldn't see me. She was like she didn't know I was there. So compassion, I had to have compassion for her story before she could have compassion for mine. And God helped us to work that out between us. So drag your little things out of your cupboard and work out what it is they mean for you and put them away where they belong. Up on the shelf, back in your heart, back to the person who hurt you. Give it back to them. And recognise that God's in the middle of it with you.